For the world's best bass hunters, the possibilities are endless.
Sweet success.
A fresh start. A new season. And the legendary waters of Lake Okeechobee. 200 will start. But in the end, only one will hold the key to Florida's liquid heart and become an FLW champion.
Yes! That's what I'm talking about. Yes! Look at that bad boy. Oh, yeah.
$500,000 winner. You know, if you want to start something big in the world of bass fishing, there is only one place to do it. Florida's Lake Okeechobee. The Big O has played host to more big-time bass fishing than perhaps any other body of water in our country. And today, the monster bass of Okeechobee will star in yet another major tournament fishing premiere.
Hello everyone, I'm Keith Leibowitz along with Chris Jones. Welcome to the 2007 Walmart FLW Series BP Eastern Division. This is the first of 4 Eastern Division events, all with a $1 million total purse, all with a potential of $125,000 top prize.
Absolutely, Keith. Big money on the Big O this week. Southern Florida is the place to be. Clewiston, Florida, Lake Okeechobee is the place to be in January. Got an awesome event going, and the one thing about Lake Okeechobee is that one big bite, an 8, 9, 10 pounder, goes a million miles this week.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're in 1st or 10th place, you can win this event. And speaking of 10th place, the National Guard team member, Scott Martin, is about 13 pounds out of the lead, but don't count him out. He could bring in a big sack and win this event, but he's going to have to come back from a huge deficit that's been set. The bar's been set, my friends, by David Dudley, the Castro Pro. He is on fire.
He's going to be hard to overcome, Keith. David Dudley has stacked him up big all week long. $1.8 million career earnings, and he's only 31 years old, and he's just getting started. Wesley Strader's in the mix. Jason Knapp, he was your day 2 leader. A great field. It's going to be an awesome weigh-in.
But Chris, there is one other factor we've yet to mention that will probably have the biggest impact on the outcome of this event, and that, of course, is the weather.
Old man cold front moving through on day 2, it dropped temperatures and sent the main lake bite into a tailspin. You can see at takeoff this morning that the anglers were still dressed like we were heading out on Lake Erie in November instead of sunny South Florida.
And the guys who were able to make some big-time adjustments are the guys who are still on the water today. And no one handled this cold front curveball better than National Guard Pro and local favorite, Scott Martin.
I changed my game plan 180 degrees. Again, I'd practice this lake looking for flipping fish. That's how to win tournaments on Lake Okeechobee. But the wind was so bad on day 2 that it actually moved the water so much that it muddied up most of the area on the south end of the lake. It really kind of shut those fish down. So I basically abandoned that whole pattern and went looking for new fish with a crankbait. You know, we had cold weather, high pressure, and that's kind of crankbait weather.
And Keith, this is a prime example of how to use a home field advantage. Scott was a virtual non-factor in 112th place after day 2, but he had the guts, confidence, and knowledge to change everything on day 3 and climb 102 places to get into this top 10.
And it looks like the new pattern is still holding up for Scott Martin. He's got one on.
Oh, yes. Woo-hoo-hoo, baby. Persistence pays off. Wow.
And we are just getting started here. The final day battle on the Big O continues. Plus, water levels are extremely low on the big lake this week. Just how has that affected the fish? We'll find out when the Walmart FLW Series returns on FLW Outdoors. Welcome back to the Walmart FLW Series BP Eastern Division season opener on Florida's Lake Okeechobee, where we have a fantastic top 10 out there on the water.
And Keith, none with a more impressive resume than our leader, Castro Pro David Dudley. And it's the kind of winning record that grabs the attention of his fellow competitors. In fact, Here's what Duracell Pro Andy Morgan had to say at takeoff this morning.
Probably one of the best raw talent fishermen ever. Yeah. No matter what it is, saltwater, freshwater, you're out here catching Oscars, he could go beat you, you know.
That is some pretty high praise coming from a guy who has over 35 career top 10s himself.
There he is.
And here's our leader now, David Dudley, already hooked up with his first fish of the day.
That's a nice one. Boy, he swallowed it too. Number one, baby, number one. Number one, baby. That's a nice one.
That's the way it's been going all week for this guy. You'll notice he's not flipping shallow grass like you normally see on Okeechobee. He's working a rim canal, and more specifically, a deep hole near one of the many locks that circle the main lake. And he's deep cranking. Talk about going against the grain.
That is a quick one in the box for our leader who began the day with a 4.5-pound lead. Look out for Dudley.
And that's important, Keith, because here on the Walmart FLW Series, we have a cumulative weight event. All 200 pros and co-anglers fish the first 3 days with a 5-fish limit per day. We crown a co-angler champ after day 3, and the top 10 pros advance to fish the final day. But their weights carry over. The winner will be the pro with the heaviest 4-day total weight.
So catching David Dudley will not be easy because, as we mentioned earlier, Chris, the cold front combined with super low water levels on Okeechobee has forced the guys to make some major changes.
Basically, Okeechobee is probably one of the biggest lakes that we go to, but yet it's one of the smallest lakes that we're going to fish. And because of the weather and because things change, basically you ride around Okeechobee and find where clean water is.
And that was a struggle this week because the wind blew so much that the clear water would come out of the marsh on the north end of the lake and make the water too clear. And again, on the south end of the lake, all that storm surge and water surge would make the water too muddy. And that's what really shut down the bite here on Lake Okeechobee.
So the guys have been rolling with the punches all week long, moving from the main lake grass beds to the rim canals in search of deeper, clearer water. Ranger Pro Todd Otten has made all the right moves so far. He started the day in second place, just one big bite off the lead.
Little guy.
That's a keeper, but that's about all it is. And here on the Big O, a limit of fish like that is not going to do it. On this body of water, you've got a legitimate shot at a 10-pound plus bass every time you make a cast. And that means every guy out there still has a shot at this thing.
Yeah, they sure do. We've seen proof of that all week long. In fact, when we come back, we'll take a look at the Big Fish Bonanza leading to this final day shootout. Stay tuned. The Walmart FLW Series BP Eastern Division continues right after this. Giant Lake Okeechobee is often referred to as the liquid heart of Florida and is one of the premier bass fishing waters in the world. Home base for nearly every big-time bass event here is the little town of Clewiston, Florida, a scenic spot on the shores of the Big O, surrounded by sugar cane, abundant wildlife, and trophy largemouth bass. And when the bass anglers make the trek to Clewiston and Lake Okeechobee, there's really only one place to go.
Hi, I'm Scott Martin, and welcome to Roland and Marianne Martin's Marina. This is our marina. It's the complete bass fishing resort here on the shores of Lake Okeechobee. You know, we're very proud to host the FLW Outdoors tournaments here. Matter of fact, we hosted the very first one 12 years ago. So, hey, it's kind of like the huddle up for the year. All the bass fishermen come down to Lake Okeechobee and kick off the year, enjoy the warm weather and the big bass.
And at the soul of this family-owned fishing factory is Marianne Martin. For as long as big-time bass tournaments have been around, Marianne has been there, making pros and amateurs from all over the world feel welcome. What started as a small bait shop on the shores of Lake Okeechobee is now the #1 bass fishing destination in the world. No small feat, but not a surprise from one of the female pioneers of tournament fishing, and one of the big reasons we continue to come back as often as we can.
Brings a lot of anglers, families, their children, and tourists to our community. So that really benefits the whole economy of Clewiston, and we really need this, and we do appreciate it.
It's a family business built on bass fishing. but a family first and foremost. So even though Marianne always welcomes everyone with open arms, her heart belongs to just one pro.
Go Scott.
Go Scott. Great Scott. We need great Scott.
Scott has been making Mama proud all week and is working on what could be one of the biggest come-from-behind victories in FLW history.
Thank the Lord. We're working on them.
He is working on him. Another quality keeper for the hometown hero, and what an amazing journey to the top 10 for Martin this week. On day one, the BP Eastern Division pros wasted no time shaking the off-season rust, attacking Lake Okeechobee with a vengeance. It was an incredible start to the season, as nearly 80% of the field weighed in a 5 bass limit, and just under a ton of bass crossed the FLW stage. But the early lead went to Berkeley pro Glenn Brown, who was the only guy to top the 20-pound mark.
20 pounds, 4 ounces.
On day two, the winds of change were blowing as a major cold front moved in and took control. The field flipped and flopped like a fish out of water as guys struggled to find willing biters. Pepsi pro Jason Knapp made the best bad weather adjustments, netting nearly 20 pounds for the day two lead. And while the big fish were tougher to come by, some were still around, as pro Bobby Lane proved with his 9-pound Snickers Big Bass Award winner. Day three quickly became a mad scramble to find new fish, unaffected by the cold, windy conditions. The pros that made the right adjustments quickly rose to the top. Fujifilm pro Wesley Strader made a huge cut day jump, bagging one of the biggest limits of the tournament, nearly 21.5 pounds, to jump from 82nd all the way up to 3rd. National Guard pro Scott Martin also made the most of moving day with a 19.5-pound limit that rocketed Martin from 112th to 10th. But the day three lead would go to perhaps the most consistent pro in the field all week, Castrol pro David Dudley. The only guy to weigh double-digit limits every day, Dudley weighed just over 20 pounds of Big O bass to jump into the lead. On the co-angler side, Ron Fabizak of South Bend, Indiana, made the most of a tough week on the water to become our first $25,000 co-angler champion of the season.
And speaking of co-anglers, the guys in the back of the boat had the really big fish dialed in this week.
When we come back, one of those guys, Brad Wigman of Springdale, Arkansas, steps into the spotlight. Stay tuned. The final day is underway here on Lake Okeechobee and the season opener for the new Walmart FLW Series BP Eastern Division. Hi again, everybody. I'm Keith Leibowitz along with Chris Jones. And Chris, we just saw our first co-angler champion of the season, Ron Fabizak of Indiana, but he wasn't the only co-angler making noise this week.
Like Tony Heyman of Penny Farms, Florida, who weighed the biggest bass of the tournament, a 9-pound, 9-ounce monster. And Brad Wigman of Springdale, Arkansas, with the week's second biggest fish at 9 pounds, 3 ounces.
And that's a true trophy for Brad, who has been at this game for a long time. In fact, he's entering his 7th season as an FLW co-angler, which more than qualifies him for the honor of being our first subject in a new feature we like to call the Berkeley Co-Angler Close-Up.
When I first started out about 5 years ago fishing as a co-angler, it was just to travel around, fish some different lakes, and learn some techniques from people that I didn't know. Hey, morning, Steve. Man, this rain is something else, isn't it? When I go and meet my pro, I ask him just a couple questions. I say, look, am I going to be fishing for largemouth or smallmouth? And what kind of gear do I need? Spinning rods. If he laughs at me because I say spinning rods, I bring a big flipping stick. I always try and finesse down. If they're using a bigger lure, I'll use a smaller lure and finesse down. Hey, the greatest thing about being a co-angler, and I'm telling you right now, is fishing with some of the best anglers in the world, and some of them have a great sense of humor.
Sometimes you need a sense of humor in the back of the boat, Chris.
It helps. but you can also see just how much planning and forethought goes into being a successful co-angler.
By the way, if you'd like more information on how you can get involved as a co-angler on the Walmart FLW Tour Series or any FLW event, log on to FLWOutdoors.com or subscribe to FLW Outdoors magazine. Back out on the water, and the final day is starting a little slow for most of the guys.
It's that second day after a cold front, Keith, and it's usually the toughest fishing day after a change. Fuji Pro Wesley Strader, who made a huge day 3 jump just to get into this top 10, abandoned the main lake fish altogether and is way up north, all alone, fishing in the Kissimmee River.
What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to stay right out here, right off the lip, where it changes from, you know, it'll be 2 to 4 foot deep right up here, and then it falls off in the river channel. And those fish, a lot of the fish, the majority of them are suspended right out off the lip of that thing. These thousands and thousands of bass in here. There he is, that's a big.
He's hooked up to a big fish, Keith, and keeping that rod tip down is important. He does not want to lose this fish.
This fish is working him all over the boat.
He's going for the net. It ripped some drag there, Keith.
Yes! Woo! That's what lives in the Kissimmee River. I kissed him right in the mouth with a big old trap.
That's Wesley Strader. Now that's the kind of fish that'll win a tournament, Chris.
And the most amazing thing, Keith, is how he's catching them. There's no question that almost every tournament held on Lake Okeechobee is won on the main lake, flipping super thick grass beds. Now here's a guy off the lake in a river ripping fast-moving lipless crankbaits over suspended fish. You talk about the importance of being a diverse angler? Wesley Strader is showing us this week.
But Chris, he is not the only one showing us this week. Look at David Dudley. He is working his school of rim canal fish with a 1-2 punch.
Pretty good.
We saw his first keeper earlier come on a deep diving crankbait. He's got 3 in the box total, and now he's pitching a small shaky head worm.
You're toast. You are toast.
It's a good solid 2-pounder. There he is.
And he's got another one hooked up, Keith.
Wow, David Dudley, I tell you what,
I love a shaky head.
if there is anyone you don't want to have to chase down with the lead, it's David Dudley. The Castro Pro has proven time and time again he can win the event when he's the front runner.
That was stupid, David.
A limit by 8:30 and all day long to hunt for big fish. The Castro Pro is certainly in the driver's seat, Keith.
Shaky head strikes again.
So the leaders may have abandoned the famous Lake Okeechobee grass beds, but not everyone has given up on these proven big bass locations. When we come back, we'll give you the details on how to find and catch lunker largemouth in heavy cover. Stay tuned. This is the Walmart FLW Series BP Eastern Division on FLW Outdoors.
Bucks on the line, and Chris, our anglers have had to do a lot of changes this week just to make the top 10.
They have, Keith. During the practice period, it was sunny, 80 degrees. Same thing on Wednesday, the first day of the tournament. Then Thursday and Friday, cold front came through, a major cold front. Wind blew 20 to 30 miles from the north. It rained on Thursday. The fish got lockjaw. And the guys that have eliminated the 190 other anglers to make the top 10, those 10 pros have persevered.
And one of those guys is Pepsi Complete Pro Jason Knapp. Our day 2 leader was working a rim canal earlier this morning, but could only contact small fish. Now he's out on the main lake grass.
Oh, God.
Wow, you could hear the burning of that line there, Chris.
He's got a good fish hooked up, Keith.
That's what we're looking for.
Yeah, nice job, Jason Knapp.
And Keith, with the sun coming out and things warming up, this could be a sign that the main lake fish are going to turn on. If that happens, the leaders may have to watch out.
But that's the kind of fish you catch on the straw. So, good stuff.
But finding and catching those big fish in this super thick cover is anything but easy. So we turn to one of our many experts, Duracell Pro Andy Morgan, to give us a lesson in flipping and pitching heavy cover in this week's Fishing 101, presented by BF Goodrich.
Pitching and flipping are similar techniques, but yet they're different. Flipping is a technique used more for maybe thicker cover. You've got a little more colored water where you can get closer to the fish, and it's a lot more effective because it is a quicker technique. You can actually put the bait in there under 20, 22 feet very quickly, very efficiently, very accurately. Pitching is a technique used, it's pretty much the same pendulum swing, yet you're more or less an underhand, controlled underhand cast, where you're getting the bait out there a little further. Maybe you have some clear water and you want to get a little further pitch with a saw presentation. That's where pitching comes in. You're going to get in there, you're going to make that presentation where it's just deadly quiet. That fish, 90% of the time, especially in a vegetation lake like Okeechobee, as soon as that bait falls through that vegetation, boom, he's hit. You set back immediately right then and you fight the fish in. Well, you've already got him at 20 feet with a flipping technique, so you've got the upper hand at that point.
All right, thanks, Andy. To see all of our Fishing 101 segments, log on to FLWOutdoors.com. Now back to the action and back on the main lake where Ranger Pro Todd Auten, he's already got a limit of fish in the boat, and now he's hooked up with something he can cull with.
I'm in here. Oh, yeah. Woo! All right. How about that?
How about that one, Todd? A great upgrade, and Chris, you said it earlier, maybe these lake fish are about to turn on.
It's interesting to see what Todd is doing here, Keith. He knows the cold front pushed these fish out of the shallow grass and into deeper water. And he also knows as the weather stabilizes, the fish will start to move back in. But rather than wait for the fish to move back to the shallow water, he's moved out away from the grass where he can intercept the fish on their way back in.
It's all about making the right moves at the right time, and we're seeing it here today.
Don't tell nobody, but this has got my door.
Stay tuned. The final day battle on the Big O continues after this. Keith Leibowitz along with Chris Jones, and we're on Lake Okeechobee.
But this isn't Lake Okeechobee, Keith. This is actually the Kissimmee River that flows into Okeechobee on the north end. And it's where Fujifilm pro Wesley Strader has a bunch of biting fish. He's hooked up to a good fish, Keith. And it jumped on him.
In the net, baby.
Wow, he got it. That is 3 in the boat for Wesley Strader, and he is keeping the pressure on our leader, David Dudley.
A great job of handling this fish as well, Keith. It got up in the air on him, rod in one hand and net in the other. That's the way to get it done.
Okay. That's when they're eating it right there. When they got that main hook in their jaw like that, the top, when they got that front hook, that means they're eating.
Impressive job by Wesley Strader, who has improved his position by leaps and bounds each day. And with this pace, he could be heading right to the top.
Thank you, Lord.
But there is one person who can keep him from reaching that peak, and that is Day 3 leader, Castro Pro David Dudley.
There he is. Oh, yeah, baby. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And this one has David Dudley's attention.
He's doing a great job of keeping the rod tip low, all the way down in the water, in fact. That's to keep the fish from jumping.
Yeah, he does not want this fish to come off. David Dudley knows he's got a nice one on.
Who would ever thought you'd come to Okeechobee and deep crank?
I'm with you, David. I would never have expected to see a guy deep cranking on Okeechobee in January, but it sure is getting the job done today. And what David is doing is pretty simple. He's working the deepest water he can find in a rim canal at the mouth of a lock. This is a small area without much cover, but due to the low water and cold weather, the fish are drawn to the deepest holes.
When you're fishing deep and you bust them schools up, you need to get in there as quick, as many casts as quick as possible while they're fired up and sitting on the stuff.
And you know, Chris, another important factor that I see in David Dudley is his ability to switch between 2 very different presentations.
Different fish, even within the same school in the same location, are triggered to bite by different things. So he picks off the crankbait biters, but after a handful of casts with no response, he immediately picks up the subtle shaky head worm and shows the same fish something completely different.
Beautiful hook set by Dudley.
Keith, he is hooked up again on the shaky head worm. He's got the light line and the spin reel. It's finesse fishing, so he has to be careful in landing this fish.
I think so. It's a fat, chunky one.
This guy is one of the most competitive fishermen around. Man, I would not want to have to be chasing him down.
That healthy limit just keeps growing, and you can see how differently he handles this light line jigworm fish. This is one of the toughest front runners in the business, and when you watch him work, it's easy to see why he's the FLW all-time leading money winner.
Back now with local favorite and National Guard pro Scott Martin, who is looking for some very specific locations to find fish.
You know, I've been throwing lipless crankbaits a lot today, and I threw some medium divers, 4 to 6 foot, and I'm keying on areas of the rim canal and channels that have lots of rock, because we had a cold front come in, and the rocks really like to hold a lot of heat. And those fish really snuggle up next to those rocks because it's a little bit warmer, and I'm trying to run that crankbait right down the edge of the rocks. You have to make a perfect cast right down the edge of the rocks, and if you do that, you catch a fish.
Yeah! Woo! I love it when a plan works.
Things sure have changed for a guy who couldn't buy a bite the first 2 days of this tournament, Chris.
Keithy had nothing to lose and made a major presentation and location change. Sometimes the big gamble pays off.
It sure does, but who's gonna hit the $125,000 jackpot? We find out when FLW Outdoors returns. Welcome back to the Walmart FLW Series BP Eastern Division on Lake Okeechobee. Keith Leibowitz along with Chris Jones. This is Fujifilm Pro Wesley Strader, and he's being worked all over the boat right now.
Folks, you don't know how hard this is, especially with this kind of money on the line. Listen to how hard Wesley's breathing.
Get in the net, Bobby. He's not very big, but that makes 4.
He's closing in on a solid limit here, which really isn't a big surprise to anyone, because for Wesley, catching bass is all in the family.
It's not an unusual story. Dad takes his boys fishing, which turns into a lifelong pursuit. That's exactly the way it happened for FLW pros Wesley and Sean Strader.
We've always, you know, known what we wanted to do. We'd always come to Dad and say, Dad, here's what we want to do. And he'd say, if that's what you want to do it.
But unlike most, Dad didn't just teach these boys how to fish and turn them loose. With rod in hand, Bud Strader decided he was going on this tournament journey as well as an FLW Series co-angler.
Folks, you're subject to lose a big old fish. A big old fish gets off every time if you don't change your line. I don't understand why a lot of guys don't fish it. I just don't believe that they understand how easy it is to come out and fish, and the guys that get to fish with. It's good.
So, armed with 2 generations of fishing knowledge, the Strader family fishermen tour the country in search of giant bass. But even though Wesley and Sean are in the pro spotlight, Papa Bud is not just along for the ride. In fact, there's been only one Strader to win an FLW Series title.
12 pounds, 13 ounces. Your champion is Bud Strader of Rockwood, Tennessee.
Me and my brother have not heard the end of it since. We had to rent a U-Haul on the way back from Osage Beach because his head wouldn't fit in the truck with us, so we had to put the U-Haul behind us. So.
Good thing is you get to go with your kids and you get to spend time with them. You know, like Sean, this trip I spent 3 days with him. Sometimes I spend a couple of days with Wesley, or 3 days with Wesley, and 1 day with Sean. Sometimes I threaten Sean, he gets mad, and so I have to go with Wesley and let him cool off a little bit.
I never get mad, Dave.
No.
Sean gets mad.
Sean gets hot, but...
What? You're crazy.
Soon, the Strader Family Road Show, anglers and support crew, will be down the road again to the next stop on the quest for fishing greatness. But first, Brother Sean and Papa Bud will have to wait for Wesley, because win or lose, for the Straders, it's always all in the family.
Yeah, life is good, though, I promise you.
Fishing and family, that is what it's all about, Chris.
And these guys take care of both pretty darn well.
We're back now to our Day 3 leader, Castrol Pro David Dudley. And look at this, Chris. He is hooked up with another big fish.
And he knows it too, Keith. Look at this fish, taking him to the back deck of the boat.
Yeah, baby, yeah! Woo!
Unbelievable. The guy is on fire. Another major upgrade. Dudley, look at that.
Let's see how he handles this strike, Keith. Not overreacting to the bite, just letting the rod load up to bury that hook. And getting that solid hook set is so important when they start doing this at the side of the boat.
Oh, yeah, baby. Oh, baby. That's a kicker right there. That's it. Woo! There he is. There he is.
Oh, boy, and you can see David Dudley has switched back to the light tackle, and he's got another one on.
He don't feel that big. Oh, gosh. I'll take that back. I lied.
It's another giant.
Yep, David, sometimes all you can do is laugh. A crankbait fish on one cast, then a jigworm fish on the next.
And that is another upgrade for David Dudley. Somebody is really going to have to hit the mother load to challenge the Castro Pro today for this title.
Keith, if there's anyone with a chance to do it, it's this guy, Fujifilm Pro Wesley Strader.
Good.
Oh, and he's got one on, and he likes it.
That's a good one. Stay down. God, that's a big one. Stay down, baby.
Jumped on him.
Saying stay down. He does not want this fish to come off.
Has his rod halfway in the water trying to keep that fish down.
Oh, he got the motor.
All the way around the boat, Keith. Doesn't want this fish to jump.
It's another great big one.
Taking his time. Patience, Wesley.
Yeah! Woo! That's what I'm talking about! Yeah!
Jimmy Christmas.
Just look at how Wesley handles this giant Lake Okeechobee bass. It gets him all the way around the back of the boat. The line actually hits the lower unit of the motor. He doesn't panic. Then, look at that big head come out of the water. Awesome.
Folks, if you touch that channel, you don't know what you're gonna miss.
I couldn't have said it better myself, Wes. Folks, we've got a shootout. Don't go away. National Guard Western Division from Lake Havasu, Arizona, next Sunday on FSN. The clock is ticking towards weigh-in, and the battle on the Big O has turned into a two-horse race between Day 3 leader Castro Pro David Dudley and Fujifilm Pro Wesley Strader.
This has been quite a matchup, Keith. David Dudley hasn't had any real monsters, but has been steadily upgrading his limit all day long, while Strader hasn't caught as many fish, but they've all been awesome.
Chris, time is running out, but David Dudley may have time for one more upgrade. And you can see he's back to the crankbait, and he's got one on here.
Back to the power fishing technique.
Yeah.
He's been back and forth from finesse to power fishing all day, and it's paid off. Versatility, Keith.
Yes! Yes, baby!
Wow, there is just not much that hasn't worked for David Dudley today.
It's been about as good a final day as any tournament leader could ever expect, and David knows it.
I'll tell you what, these 4 days have been great. I haven't lost any fish. I think I fished very well. If somebody beats me, they deserve it. That's all there is to it. I've done the best I can do. Now we're heading back to the weigh-in and we're gonna see what the outcome is.
So Dudley is done. But now, back over to the Kissimmee River, where Strader is looking for one more of those monster bites.
There he is. It might be a stick. No, it's a fish. I mean, that's a big one. Stay down, baby. Yeah! Woo! That's what I'm talking about! Bam!
And Wesley Strader, there's no doubt, Chris, he thinks he's won this tournament.
Could it be a storybook ending for the Fujifilm Pro Wesley Strader, Keith? All of these big fish have come on the same small stretch of shoreline. They say you never leave fish to find fish, and Wesley showed us why today.
Folks, get ready for the best FLW Series weigh-in at the Walmart in Clewiston, Florida. Yeah!
Well, I know I'm not going anywhere. How about you, Chris?
No way. I wouldn't miss this for the world.
The top 10 are headed for the ramp. And while they work their way towards the Walmart Supercenter, let's take a quick look back at what turned out to be a fantastic final day on the Big O.
Oh, yes. Yeah! Yeah, baby, yeah!
You don't know what you're gonna miss.
Back at the Clewiston Walmart Supercenter, fans of all ages enjoy the FLW Fun Zone, while the boys from the National Guard get the fans pumped up. And that's fitting because our first angler to the stage is the National Guard pro and hometown favorite, Scott Martin. Scott worked his way from 112th place on day 2 into a shot at the tournament lead.
There we go. It's going to be close, Scott. You may come up a little short. Just needs to be 13 pounds, 6 ounces. Scott Martin, 5 bass, that away. 13 pounds, 5 ounces. 13.5.
Just 1 ounce shy, but what an incredible comeback performance by Scott Martin this week. Next up is M&M's pro, Pat Fisher. It's been a great week for Pat, but not enough today to threaten the lead. Berkeley pro Joe Thomas is next.
Looking for 12 pounds, 12 ounces to go meet Keith Leibowitz. Not gonna make it. A limit worth 7 pounds and 6 ounces.
A solid 5 fish limit for the former BFL All-American champion who finishes in 7th place. Yamaha pro Jim Dillard takes the stage. Another final day limit, but the size just is not there, and Dillard will finish in 5th. Now it's time for Jason Knapp, the Pepsi Complete pro. He had a great tournament, but fell 1 fish shy of a limit today. Next up, Duracell pro Andy Morgan. It was a nightmare final day for Andy. Only 2 fish, and leader David Dudley keeps dodging bullets. We're down to just 3 challengers to Dudley's day 3 lead. The first is Ranger pro Tim Farley.
5'2", so you're halfway there. You got 2 fish left to weigh in. Empty. 3 fish, that away. 5 pounds and 3 ounces. It is 5-3 for 3 bass.
Is anybody gonna make a serious run at David Dudley's lead? We crown a champion here on the Big O. Next. Welcome back to the Walmart FLW Series BP Eastern Division season opener on Florida's Lake Okeechobee. It's time to crown a champion. We're down to the final 3 with $125,000 on the line. And one of the 3 is day 3 leader, David Dudley, who has watched 7 straight challengers try and fail to take over the hot seat. Fujifilm pro Wesley Strader is next, and he's got a healthy limit.
Pull them out. Wow! A 5 bass limit. 20 pounds and 1 ounce. 20 pounds and 1 ounce. Now we've got a ball game.
At last, the Castro Pro has a challenger. Fuji Pro Wesley Strader climbs into the hot seat as the new tournament leader. Ranger Pro Todd Otten is next.
Let's see, 4 and 5 if you've got them. Looking for 15-7. 2 good fish. Pretty good sack of fish. 5 bass limit needs to be 15-7. 13 pounds, 6 ounces, so you'll come up short.
A great tournament for Todd, but he'll have to settle for 3rd. So we're down to just 2 pros, our leader and Castro Pro Day 3 leader, David Dudley.
Here it is, 198 pros have been eliminated. These 2 vying for $125,000 and 1 step closer for you to that $2 million mark at 31 years old. Here we go. Any last words, gentlemen?
Yeah, Dudley, you've won $1.8 million. I think it's time you let somebody else win a little bit of money.
You'll need 10 pounds, 13 ounces for the win, one fish at a time. Are you ready, David? Here we go. See what he's got. Pretty good start. Is he having fun with Wesley? We'll find out. That fish weighs in at 3.4. Number 2, you just need 10-13. Number 3, number 4, and number 5, David Dudley, Castro Pro, has a 5-bass limit. The Castro Pro, David Dudley, $125,000, needs to weigh 10-13. 18 pounds and 8 ounces for David Dudley, your champion.
A textbook victory for David Dudley. No one was more consistent or did a better job of adjusting to the conditions and changing weather than David. And you can add another $125,000 to the all-time leading money winner's bankroll.
When you're a fisherman, you've got to follow your instinct. And my instinct and what I know in the fishing world is what I did in this tournament, and it did pay off. You can't go any higher than first for the first one, so, you know, I feel good about it.
Congratulations, David, on your 4th career victory under the FLW Outdoors umbrella. And here is how we finished up. Another FLW Classic in the books, and a great way to kickstart the all-new Walmart FLW Series BP Eastern Division. And here are the Land O'Lakes Angler of the Year standings right now after one event in the BP Eastern Division. Everyone competing in the division is trying to finish in the top 30 at the end of the year to earn a spot in the FLW Series Championship. And a reminder, for all the details on this event and every FLW Outdoors event, log on to FLWOutdoors.com or pick up a copy of FLW Outdoors magazine. A special thanks this week to the great folks at